because this series is so long and there's so many games, I kind of just want to play through them all at some point. I don't think I'm going to get through Yakuza, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 before Infinite Wealth comes out, but I've played 7, and Infinite Wealth is 8, and there's a interim game. We're going to try to focus on Asian crime games today. This is a beat 'em up, mostly. However, Infinite Wealth, as well as Yakuza Like a Dragon, are both JRPGs, like turn-based, but they still kind of play like this in a weird way. Yakuza Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon 7 or Ryogago Toku 7 is a very good JRPG, and it feels very snappy to play.
狭山は国家西上がりの準キャリア、専門職として採用されたその道のエキスパートなのさ。
じゃああいつはなぜ4課に？
配属後すぐに本人の強い希望があったらしい。最初から彼女の目標は4課に行くことだったんだろう。
そこまでして4課に。
まあ俺が知ってるのは狭山の来歴だけだ。人の心の奥までは覗けねえからな。
It's really kind of interesting too that they're showing and telling right here, so that she just sits down and starts going to work on a hacking mission basically, and she's doing it, and instead of just being like, well, where the hell she'd learn how to hack, this guy's like, no, I know a lot about this chick. She's really good at this stuff. It's kind of why she's as high profile a detective as she is, but you're seeing her do it too, so it's like, yeah, it's someone who knows telling someone who doesn't know while she's actually doing something. That was an interesting way to do that. She's positioned as kind of a femme fatale, but also opposite side of the coin, or the yin-yang to Kiryu, in that she's on the side of the law, but does stuff in the organized crime world because she wants to, and she wants to fight this world. And Kiryu's more about restoring order to that world. Their goals are kind of aligned because, you know, she's not ever going to be able to destroy organized crime. She doesn't want the Yakuza getting too out of control, so she's trying to stop what's going on here with the blonde-haired dude that basically kicks Kiryu's ass at the beginning of the game. He's Japanese, he just has like dyed blonde hair. That's sort of our primary antagonist, so she wants him behind bars, and for Kiryu to be guiding the Yakuza towards a more ethical path, even if it is crime. A black market in a scope where the police can still properly fight crime and not let crime get too out of control. Because if that structure isn't there, then chaos will get too out of control. So the Yakuza are good at kind of keeping the criminals in the city that want to do more high profile things from doing anything too crazy. They're still playing the game of like, yeah, we all don't want to be behind bars either, even though like she knows he's a Yakuza guy. She could probably get him on something, but he's like, yeah, I'm helping you though. And she's like, yeah, you're right, we need I could use your help because you're awesome at fighting people, Kiryu. Like, you're incredible at it. You're kind of the best. And she's not a bad fighter also, so that's kind of another thing of the show don't tell, where we don't just hear that she's a really badass martial artist. We fight alongside her in battles where she's taking on just as many fighters as we are. We don't really have to worry about her getting killed or anything like that. And if we're close to her and we have our heat gauge up, we can press Y to do like a cool team up attack with her that does like a little cinematic angle. So we're shown that she's a really competent character. I like the way characters are done in the Yakuza games a lot. A side story to Yakuza Like a Dragon, I guess, is what Gaiden is. Because Kiryu has, at this point, died, I suppose, which, I mean, I'm assuming happens in Yakuza 6. I was told he was dead at the beginning of Like a Dragon. Gaiden is us seeing what Kiryu was doing in the interim. Japanese studios making your PC ports, please just get an option to quit to desktop from the game itself. I don't want to have to go to the title menu to leave. It's why I end up Alt F4ing so many games, man. Just let me just leave the game when I want. It took me 57 hours to complete, so it is not a short game, but it is a good one. Very good story, very good acting, And again, I'm talking about the English version. They do a good job with the lip syncing too in the scenes. But I do like this series quite a bit. And I mean, for as far as like as a thing to be playing on this channel, the first video I ever made on a video game was on Yakuza 0. It's the first one I ever played too. I wasn't like a big fan of the series growing up. I was just always aware of it. I played Yakuza 0 and I'm like, oh my god, this is brilliant. Like, I can't believe I'd never played one of these games before. Then I played Kiwami immediately afterwards and stalled in the middle of Kiwami 2 because Like a Dragon came out and I really wanted to see what the JRPG thing was like, and I immediately got really pulled into it and played the whole thing and then did a video on it. I never went back to finish Kiwami. I guess because I crushed a 60-hour Yakuza RPG that I was like, okay, I might need a break from this world for a bit. Need to play something else for a moment. After the prologue, which takes place in the 90s, Ichiban wakes up, gets out of prison, does some stuff, and then wakes up in this homeless camp. And this is during Yakuza Like a Dragon, obviously after the first act. Said there's a guy with a gunshot wound in his tent. Okay, so Ichiban is in there right now. That's what's going on. Makes me curious, but I don't have time to be worrying about strangers. So what he's talking about is Kiryu is saying, okay, Ichiban is in there, but he doesn't know who Ichiban is and how that story is going down. But that actually is pretty important to what's going on in the world of Yakuza, and Kiryu does end up showing up at one point. I guess we will see the story of how what Kiryu was doing while Like a Dragon was going on in this game. That is a beat 'em up, not a JRPG. Which I like. I like that they've not just totally given up on making Yakuza beat 'em ups. I thought this was a total spin-off, like the Ishin games, which I do not own, and that's actually the reason I wasn't going to play this, because I thought it was just another like, hey, this one's fantasy or something, like, because Kiryu has that crazy high-tech laser, I don't know, whip that comes out of his watch. And I thought that was like, okay, that's a little crazy even for Yakuza, but I think it is canon by the look of this story so far. It seems like it pretty much fits with everything except for that one item being a little bit OP and maybe a little bit fantastical for this world. And then again, a lot of the special attacks and things in Yakuza Like a Dragon are very over the top, but they work for that game very well. The whole game is almost presented as if it's a dude who was a big fan of Dragon Quest, kind of imagining that everything that's happening around him is like way more crazy and way more like a JRPG than it actually is. It's through his creative mind's eye, I guess, that you're seeing the crazy stuff. But see what I mean? Like that there's no tech like that in most of the Yakuza games as far as I'm aware. It does add an interesting dimension to it. This is 100% a faster style than we were using there. Here's Dragon of Dojima style. You see what I mean? It's a lot slower and more powerful. And people still randomly fight you in this one, which is also happens in the JRPG one. They just kind of turn into little turn-based battles. But they're good. They are really good. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. I very much enjoyed that game. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was very much the tightest Yakuza experience in that it's short and you can get through it in a pretty reasonable amount of time. There's some side content to dive into, so you can also spend a lot of time in it if you want. And the thing about it is it's just fun the entire time you're playing it. Because it's Streets of Rage. It's a beat 'em up where you walk around and you have kind of semi-Virtua Fighter battles with people and that are kind of like Shenmue, but way better and more over the top with weapons and everything, like kind of like it's an arcade beat 'em up where there's limited use weapons and all weapons just do HP damage like a JRPG. So if it's a gun or a sword and something, if it's in a battle, it's like, yeah, whatever. It's like using a fireball spell. So it would be like in a Final Fantasy game, if you throw a fireball attack at someone, you're not thinking, oh, well, they'd be burned though. So it's like, I mean, yeah, they would, but you know, it's fantasy game attacks kind of, and it's just in battle. And then when you get to the cinematic sequences, if someone gets shot with a gun, they're generally actually dead. They don't come back. Although, to be fair, in this game, a lot of people got really hurt in cinematics and they came back anyways. And even the people who we thought we were dead, it's like, yeah, no, it's like a Dragon. Gaiden, the man who erased his name. It's an action arcade beat 'em up with a very, very good story. that almost kind of made me cry just now, like just a wee bit. I was welling up. I have not even played Yakuza 5 and 6, which are mostly what the payoff for that is, but I know about it and I understand the character Kiryu is. And I know that at some point in his life, he opens up a orphanage called Morning Glory in Okinawa, and they all think he's dead. So now these kids have like grown up like 3 years, and they're older, and the teenage ones are getting jobs and stuff, and basically they left him a little message to be like, hey, yeah, we're all doing great, and we're pretty sure you're not dead, so, you know, reach out later, Uncle Kaz. And I'm an uncle, you know. I have 3 nieces and nephew. I have 2 nieces and 1 nephew. My new niece is just like a couple months old. I don't really know her very well at all, but she's very tiny, very young, very cute, not unlike Jojo. Though Jojo's getting old. Jojo's gonna be 4 this year, human years. Isn't that right, puppy? Anyways, this is a good puppy right here. She's being good right now. They have a payoff where you really get a nice kind of character moment for Kiryu. It wasn't really super connected to the story of this game, other than the fact that Kiryu's in hiding right now. Like, this is the John Wick Kiryu arc, where it's like, oh, like you're alive? Like, we thought you were dead, or you're back, or you're working again kind of deal. And it's like, yeah, I'm a different guy. Never mind. Don't worry about who I am. And that's kind of what you're doing this whole game, because you're working for what's effectively a Japanese CIA-like organization that, I don't know, it's like it's kind of a Suicide Squad type deal. They get Yakuza dudes and kind of train them to be spies and have them running black ops operations. And you're doing basically the same stuff you do in any Yakuza game. It's just the premise is a little more kind of John Wick / James Bond inspired. We'll see if it seems like Yang Ya can deliver a performance that could bring me to tears the way the Japanese actor who plays Kiryu did at the end of that game that was mostly like an action silly spy spin-off that almost made me cry at the very end by pulling a story thing out that I'm only tangentially aware of, but it's talked about enough that I understand the narrative weight of it. So I didn't need to see everything that came before it because I get it. They talk about Morning Glory in this game, and by that I mean Like a Dragon Gaiden, man who erased his name. They talk about Morning Glory in this game. They mention that it's an orphanage that Kiryu runs. You know that Kiryu is like out of the Yakuza and basically presumed dead and working as a spy. We'll see how Yan does. And honestly, as much as it's easy to make fun of, because especially, wow, that Breaking the Law karaoke was rough, man. They threw too much auto-tune on them. Also, like, what the hell? Like, why not just get someone to sing? You know? Like, I feel like there had to be someone who worked at the Yakuza devs, like at Ryogako Toku Studio, who could sing that song better and just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'll just be your singing voice for this game. Like, it's a video game, so no one's gonna know. We don't have to worry about it being bad lip syncing. The lip sync quality is gonna be the same whoever starts singing. You know, just find a guy who kind of sounds like Yang a little.
Pretty bold of you. Pretty bold of you.
See, you gotta like Kevin Conroy Kiryu. Like, that's the thing. You gotta be Kevin Conroy Batman. Is kind of what you need to do to be a convincing Kiryu in English. I think it's the only way to go. You gotta be deep and stoic. And I do love his performance, Kaiji Tang. He's great as Ichiban. This looks quite a bit better than even the game we were just playing. Running on a console, so well played. Whoever does the ports for these is really good. Like, those are some of the best ports of Japanese games there are. The recent ones, too, because Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a little rough. 0 and Kiwami 1 are great. Kiwami 2 is a bit of a oddly performing game. It's not bad, but it's not perfect. I haven't played the Judgment games, which I believe come before Like a Dragon. Like a Dragon runs great. Like a Dragon Gaiden, man who erased his name, runs great. Seems to look and run pretty great so far on this here console system. So, you know, well done. English VA sounds a lot different in like Yakuza Like a Dragon, in Yakuza 7, the first Ichiban game. Ichiban 1, Ichiban Ichi. Actually, Ichi is 1 in Japanese. Ichiban means number 1. It's an interesting path that this series has taken, technologically even, because, hey, so far, this is the best first experience I've had with Unreal Engine 5, I must say, if this is it. Unless this is just a really altered Dragon engine that looks incredible, but no. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. This one is not a beat 'em up, though. This one is a JRPG. So it's turn-based, and you can move around during combat. You can block by hitting a button in time, but you're giving attack commands as opposed to engaging with a real-time combat system the way I was in Like a Dragon Gaiden. But Like a Dragon Gaiden, depending on your perspective, might end up being a lot more difficult than this game. I'm certain there are people who won't want to play these games because if they don't like turn-based combat, they don't like JRPGs. At the same time, the storytelling is really solid, and hey, these are the ones that do have an English dub, which, I mean, Ichiban's really good. I think his voice actor is great. I think he does a great job, and from what I just heard of the Japanese one, which to be fair, that was the first time I've ever heard Ichiban speak Japanese, because I've only played the game in English, that one. Every other Yakuza game, played in Japanese, because they're all in Japanese, all the rest of them. If you like the Arkham games, I think Yakuza might not be a bad fit. Like you might actually end up really liking these games because they're tons of fun and the stories are genuinely quite good, which is why I'm going into theater mode when it's a full-blown cinematic, because I really do want to know what happens. Even though I've played games that take place after this one, so I kind of know what happens, I want to see how it goes down, because it's usually executed very, very well. Like him kissing Sayama, that was being built up for the entire game, and we're probably about 35 hours in right now. So, you know, like that kiss was a bigger deal to me than it probably was to any of you, because I was like, man, he just planted one on her. Look at that. Kiryu, go boy. But, give it to you guys, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, he kissed the pretty girl. What of it? It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, she was a cop who was tasked with essentially keeping him on a leash because he's a Yakuza guy who basically took down a guy that was, I don't want to ruin too much about the first game, but this is Yakuza 2, the remake of Yakuza 2, Kiwami. This one actually was their first use of the Dragon engine, which is the game engine that they're using for all of their current games, except for Like a Dragon Ishin, which I believe is Unreal Engine 4. And apparently after Infinite Wealth, they're switching to Unreal Engine 5. Infinite Wealth looks pretty damn good. I sort of want them to keep using this engine because this is their worst use of it, and even this game is pretty solid as far as visuals and performance go. Also, you got to remember that this is being mapped onto a lot of animations that are in a PS2 game too. So like this is their first use of their own engine was remaking a PS2 game that they made like decades prior, or a decade prior, I guess, because this was PS4 era. So yeah, 2 generations ago. Now, I've not played any of the PS2 ones. I got into this series with Yakuza 0, which is a prequel to the entire series. It is sort of not a bad one to start with. You gotta think of this as more like Streets of Rage than Arkham, I guess. It's probably like the way to look at it. It's a different take on a similar type of beat 'em up. And this one, you have weapons, and they're limited by how many hits you can deal with them, so I have 83 left on this katana. I'm really just trying to kill this guy fast, because I only want to deal with the boss. Okay, so when you eat, it not only refills your health and sometimes heat, but often you gain experience from it, so yes, I got a whole bunch of experience just in each one of these here. Yeah, so that was a very profitable meal. We got a whole lot of experience points from that, in addition to refilling our health. And the healing system and experience system is generally different from game to game. So it's not always this system of you have to eat in order to gain the bulk of your experience, and you burn stuff in your stomach. I have a 200 capacity in my stomach, and I can burn off those calories by doing things like fighting and running. There's systems for how alcohol affects you and things like that. But we can't just go eat and grind up all of our money into experience because we can only fit so much in our stomach. So you have to balance going for food with going around and running and fighting. So you could fast travel everywhere, like take the cabs, or you could actually do the run and then burn off the calories. So there's life simulator elements to Yakuza as well that I find pretty engaging usually. I actually just realized very late into the game that if you talk to the girl who you lead around, the little girl, you can upgrade her trust in you, and I only got it to level E because I noticed that very late in the game. I should have picked up that couch. Can I? Oh, is it still good? No, it's not. Yeah, you can do things like hit people with couches and stuff too. Like there's ridiculous in Yakuza that's amazing as well. Pretty much anything in the environment that is like can move can be turned into a weapon too. Oh, and the rules of reality are very flexible when you're in the middle of a fight in Yakuza. So You are shooting people and stabbing them in the gut and then kneeing it further into them and stuff like that. However, the game acts as if that is not happening and it's just a beat 'em up fight that you won. So you got to kind of think of the guns and stuff as like fireball skills and things like that in a JRPG, where the two friends can fight each other and throw fireballs at each other, and at the end of the fight it's just like, oh, that was a good fight. It's the rules are kind of like that, but in cinematics it plays by the rules of reality, so that's kind of the difference there. When you're in game though, it's so video gamey that doesn't feel as weird as it sounds. It very much feels like a video game when you're playing the game, and it very much feels like an anime when you're watching the cinematics. Though I can say that Sayama's exit from the series is unceremonious. At the beginning of the game, she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to America and join the FBI, take it easy. that's the last we see of her. And it kind of sucks after that whole thing, right? When I played that, I'd already played most of this game. I was like, oh, so they don't really end up together for any stretch of time, huh? Because it did seem like they were hinting at a romance through a lot of this game. And it only started really happening at the end. But yeah, Yakuza Kiwami 2 was quite the great video game, everybody. There was a lot of twists and turns in the storyline. Ryuji seemed like a much more one-dimensional villain when he first shows up, so I'm really happy that they kept giving you little things about him towards the end and made him kind of not a good guy, but an honorable enough guy that, like, you know, he was a good antagonist to play against. Combat in this one was really tight. Camera was a bit of a problem when you get into small, tighter areas. I think they solved that in the later games by just not having a lot of those. There's some hallway fights, I guess, but usually against a bunch of people, and they're pretty straightforward because you can kind of just keep the camera straight ahead down the hallway and be fine. The combat in it was really awesome, I think, for the most part. I had a good time in every battle. I frequently did not want to skip fights against random thugs, which happened a lot in this game, but you know, it was always kind of fun to beat up a few people, go have a snack, and then move on and move along with the story. I think this was quite the good one that I would recommend. However, I would probably recommend playing Yakuza 0 or Yakuza Kiwami 1 prior to this. There are a lot of things in this game that are kind of set up in those two, more specifically Kiwami 1 or the first Yakuza 1 on PS2 if you want to play it there, or you can play it on Steam or PS4 or whatever with Yakuza Kiwami. And that one sets up a lot of the things that happen in 2, and Yakuza 0 I think does a similar thing for Kiwami 1, even though it came out far later, so I would actually recommend 0 as the first one to play. I think it will make the story that happens in Yakuza Kiwami much better. I think the order that I would recommend would be Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, Kiwami 2, or just go right to Like a Dragon. After you play Like a Dragon, you might want to play The Man Who Erased His Name, because it's kind of a side story for that game, and it'll give you a really interesting intro to Kiryu, because that's how he shows up to the Like a Dragon timeline. It's basically the story of how he gets there. This one's the middle-aged burnouts who are now trying to be heroes and doing very, very well at it, because they're actually all really good people. I guess it's probably the best way I can describe this. They're out-of-work dudes who are old. No one really thinks of them as being very valuable, but they're also great people with good hearts who just want to help. They find themselves on an adventure through the JRPG wonderland that is Tokyo, Japan. But don't get hit by a car. The most recent Dragon Engine game is Man Who Erased His Name. This is the one prior to that. This is the third last Dragon Engine game. Yakuza Kiwami 2, the one that we finished yesterday, was the first game made in that engine. That was a remake of Yakuza 2. I think they did it mostly as practice for the new engine. The other games that I haven't touched at all, which are also in this series and technically exist in this world, are Judgment and Lost Judgment. And they're games that are in this universe, they're beat 'em ups, and you play as a cop. I believe it's a famous Japanese actor that is the likeness for him, though, and that's what made it difficult for them to do a PC launch. I think it was an issue with his talent agency or something like that, or his management didn't want him to be, like, I'd only negotiated for the PS4 version, so they couldn't get Lost Judgment on, or Judgment or Lost Judgment on PC just because of that, really. Yakuza Like a Dragon, the last Yakuza game, I think was quite the game. Good voice cast in this one. You know, As much as like I really do want to give Young Ya a chance and like say, hey, he might be good. I feel like I've heard too much of it already though, so it's like I'm not crazy about it. He's not horrible. He just sounds too much like his YouTube persona, which does not sound like a old man Kiryu, you know. And I like the voice in this one. That was pretty good. Yakuza 6. I mean, as much as like I hear that people aren't crazy about this one, I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. It's a nice change of scenery. The pace of the story was really interesting. There were a lot of cool new characters, and I mean a great new performance from Takeshi Kitano, world famous Japanese actor. I liked the twist with Yuta. I liked him being Haruto's dad. I liked how Kiryu treated him, and I sort of like how things ended up. I thought that ending actually concluded pretty definitively. And yeah, I like Yakuza 6, everybody. Although I could see it at the same time, I mean, you know Kiryu's not dead, right? I mean, like it does end with that, unless did they put that in later? The big thing that was a problem was that Kiryu dies at all. I mean, he's not dead by the end of the game, so that's why I guess I don't get that criticism. I mean, it's okay to have it. Like, it's fine to not like this game. And there were things about it that were sparse. It felt pretty empty. I found the economy weird. It did tighten up the difficulty a little bit, but it also had me grinding for healing items when I otherwise wouldn't have really needed to be if you just gave me more money over the course of like battles and missions. Even just like, hey, we finished this mission. Here's like whatever. Sold this thing that we found. Not really getting a lot of the old healing items or resources with which to buy healing items. But I mean, that also did lead to me taking a few more chances trying to get through missions while using fewer resources. And a lot of the fights in this game were really good. I really like the fact that most enemies, except for like one there at the end, only have one health bar, and that they don't just all of a sudden have 7 like they do in most of the Yakuza games. That's always one thing I've not been crazy about. I would always prefer shorter fights where I don't have to heal, as opposed to longer fights where I'm equaling out the boss's 6 health bars by healing 6 times. You know, it's like, well, okay, but could we just like, we could shorten things or just make it so that, hey, just make both of us tankier. But I guess then like you don't have, it would just be chip damage and nothing you do would feel powerful. I guess that's the explanation there, which, you know, it's tough to balance that. The audio visual experience of seeing things like how much damage you're doing to the enemy is, you know, beneficial. I think that's why they added damage numbers in this as well. Or was it, wait, damage numbers were in this one? No, in Ishin. Ishin has the damage numbers. See, I'm playing too many of these games. I'm getting the wires crossed, man. If I was sort of scared of a lot of the later Yakuza games because I didn't want to ruin the story for myself, but I find that they function pretty well on their own. And I mean, even me knowing that Kiryu is killed, I actually thought they kept him dead for the end of this game. I didn't know that whole scene with the politician was in this game at all. I thought it was only in Man Who Erased His Name, and that's where you get the truth about it.
This one is Like a Dragon Ishin, and it is a historical drama that is told with the Yakuza character models, essentially. This is Sakamoto Ryoma, who is a famous actual real-life samurai, being played by Kazuma Kiryu, who is the character whom Yang Ya will be voice acting in the new game, as well as the one that we were just playing. It's not a perfect performance. That's probably the most good faith criticism of it I can give. It is not a perfect performance. It's not all bad all the time, but definitely not ideal. The one who voices Ichiban is actually quite good in English, so I kind of want to play it in English to hear his performance, but I don't really want to hear this guy being voiced by a dude who really kind of sounds like a 30-year-old from California sounding tough. Now, granted, you know, that's who he is, and that's fine. I just don't buy him as a pushing 60 Batman of Japan. If Kiryu could be described as anything, it is Japanese mafia world Batman. He even has a Commissioner Gordon, a man named Date, who's really, really good. He's a good character, but he is basically the Commissioner Gordon of Yakuza. I'd say Ichiban, the new protagonist, is kind of like a Spider-Man, because he'll quip while he's fighting, whereas Kiryu, this guy, or like the modern day version of this guy, is more of a stoic badass, kind of a Batman type. Essentially, he sounds like Japanese Kevin Conroy, like the voice actor. And he's great. The Japanese voice actor for Kiryu, quite the thing. And the series is just very, very video gamey. So deaths don't really happen canonically in combat. The best way I've heard it described recently was that Yakuza combat takes place in a little pocket dimension where like the guns don't actually kill, they just do a set amount of HP damage, because essentially this world functions like a Japanese role-playing game. Even if the gameplay is not turn-based combat in this one, it's a beat-em-up, a kind of Streets of Rage type deal. Now, Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is the 7th game, Yakuza 7 and Yakuza 8 Infinite Wealth, or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, they're both turn-based RPGs.
Yo, long time no see, Achan.
And then exalted too, okay. I've got a thing for that! We have to have the graphics cranked up. You're looking at our cities, baby. I'm like, yeah, but can I turn them down a little so that this game doesn't run like my PS5 is dying? Yeah, I will leave you in peace is definitely a better thing to say than legendary gloves, son!
Fell into the blade of Pinocchio, son of Geppetto. Real boy. Also Mouse. X-Ray Girl sometimes does joke that she gave birth to the puppies. At least I think it's a joke.
Yeah! Oh my god, X-Ray Girl did it!